Spider-Man 3. Some remember this as the worst Spider-Man movie ever created, but I say this is the saddest Spider-Man movie. Let me explain. Our adventure begins in New York. The city is safe thanks to Spider-Man, aka Peter Parker, the nerd who's come a long way after being bitten by a radioactive spider. Even though he still gets bullied, his life has never been better. That was until he wanted to get married. But in the meantime, he goes to see Mary Jane's play, looking like her #1 fan, and Harry is there too, in the VIP section, looking down upon all these poor peasants. Once the show is over, Peter sees Harry and tries talking to him, but Harry has nothing to say to the man he blames for the death of his father. Clearly, he still has daddy issues.
This is all I got.
So he goes home and deals with the pain by taking his father's steroids and having a hotbox session, because fuck therapy. Meanwhile, Peter and MJ are getting kinky when a meteor crashes next to them carrying some black sticky stuff that follows them home. But they're not the only ones going home tonight. Next, we meet Flint Marko. He's an escaped convict who just broke out of prison and is now going home to give all these rejected letters to his daughter because the birth giver of this child probably told the mailman to go fuck himself. While he's there, Marko puts on some drip and makes himself a sandwich until his baby mama walks in and kills the mood. She basically calls him a low-life, bottom-of-the-barrel murdering scum, all while their daughter is listening. She walks out on all the ruckus and gives her dad a locket to remember her by, and Marko promises her he'll do whatever it takes to acquire the ill-gotten gains to make her healthy again. It's like a beautiful family reunion. That is, until Marko's baby mama tells him to leave. So before he leaves, he's like, "I'm not a bad person, just had bad luck." And now their daughter is going to be traumatized for life. Later, Peter visits his Aunt May and tells her he wants to marry MJ, so she congratulates him by telling him a long and boring story. But it was worth it because he got a free ring. So when he leaves with his loot, he gets snatched up by this Green Goblin ripoff. Peter defends himself by shooting his bodily fluids at him, but they just weren't enough to stop this copycat. This bootleg Green Goblin is actually sex offender James Franco. Shut up! Peter tries telling Harry he didn't kill his dad. His dad was just stupid enough to unalive himself, but Harry doesn't want to hear the truth, so they both cause thousands in property damage, leading to Peter losing the ring. But after about 30 seconds of fucking around, he grabs the ring before it hits the ground, which should have been impossible, but fuck if I know. He tries escaping through a tight alley, but Harry comes prepared and kicks this bad boy in a sports mode, and then this maniac whips out a katana on some Kill Bill shit, trying to cut Peter in half. But when that doesn't work, he grabs a handful of balls and throws them at Peter, but Peter is no stranger to balls being thrown at him. He commits a murder attempt, but fails, so he pranks him instead. Luckily, Harry breaks his fall by hitting his head on everything, and Peter's like, "Yo man, you aight?" You see, it's all shits and giggles until someone giggles and shits. In the meantime, Marco Polo runs from the cops but falls inside someone's science fair project, like an idiot, and no one here cares to check to see what's causing the change in the silicon mass. So these guys say screw it and turn on their science experiment, an experiment that causes Marco's molecules to turn into sand. Because of this, he fades away and dies. But hey, at least he lost the cops. Back at the hospital, Harry wakes up after getting his shit rocked, and lucky for Peter, Harry lost most of his memory. Therefore, Harry doesn't know Peter is Spider-Man and can't blame him for allegedly butchering his father. So Peter walks away, relieved and less guilty for his actions. Back with Marco, or what's left of him, he puts himself back together like a Lego, and now he's Sandman. Even though he had a freak accident, it's not enough to stop this man from doing what it takes to fetch money for his sick daughter. If only I had a dad like that. Later, Mary Jane visits Peter seeking comfort because the reviews she got from her recent play were awful. The critics thought her performance was terrible since she wasn't loud enough, so Peter tells her not to worry about the critics and just suck it up, champ, because Spider-Man gets attacked all the time. Then she gets annoyed because this isn't about Peter, it's about her and her pain. He's like, "You gotta believe in yourself, pull yourself together and get right back on the horse."
Don't give me the horse thing.
I thought it was good advice. Before she can finish venting, Peter's police scanner goes off and he's like, "Fire!" He abandons her to deal with her problems. Boyfriend of the year, everyone. Also, the symbiote is living rent-free in Peter's room. Anyway, the big hoopla that was so important was actually a minor inconvenience. This crane has spiraled out of control, and now it's on a rampage to destroy everything and everyone in its path, including Gwen Stacy during her modeling gig. When everyone notices the giant thing, she takes a closer look and quickly finds out. Because if you play stupid games, you win stupid prizes. The new photographer, Eddie Brock, looks up and recognizes Gwen and tells her dad, Captain Stacy, that he's dating his daughter. Because if she dies, her father should know she was dating a loser. Anyway, Gwen is on the verge of death. But lucky for her, the crane returns to finish the job. Gwen falls, so Spider-Man bobs and weaves through this chaotic mess. Then he launches himself to save Gwen from dying. Peter 3 would be jealous. And this is hands down the coolest scene out of any Spider-Man movie ever. Changed my mind. Anyway, after saving Gwen, Eddie tells him that Peter Parker's photos are trash and they make him look fat. Later at the Daily Bugle, Eddie and Peter bring J. Jonah Jameson a picture of Spider-Man for some cash. Not only does JJ pick Eddie's picture, but he also considers him for the open staff job. Peter gets salty because he's been with them for years, and if anyone deserves it, it's him. So JJ gives them a side quest to obtain a picture of Spider-Man with his hand in a cookie jar. In other words, catch Spider-Man doing something shady because Spider-Man is a menace. But only in the eyes of JJ, because Spider-Man is being awarded the key to the city. So good for him. Later, Harry goes home to find out he has no hose, and after talking about his father, Peter tries changing the subject by throwing a basketball at Harry, but then realizes that Harry still got the moves. But do you know who doesn't have the moves? Mary Jane. Because when she shows up for work, she finds out she's been replaced.
What is she doing here?
So she leaves unemployed, but then an entire crowd of people cheer, but not for her. They cheer for your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. Sucks to suck. But in the meantime, we find Eddie taking pictures of Gwen and then insists on seeing her later that night, but she says no, and he's like, why not? What about that amazing night that we had?
We had coffee, Eddie.
Peter takes photos of Mary Jane, but she's not feeling it because she's unemployed. She doesn't tell Peter because, I don't know, fuck him I guess. Anyway, Flint Marko is casually roaming the streets of New York before he gets recognized by the cops. These cops try looking for him inside this truck, and as this man is about to start digging, he gets hit by a fistful of sand. Everyone panics, but New York's finest starts spraying at Sandman, but he's like, and they all get obliterated. Anyway, everyone is excited to see Spider-Man, so Peter's ego is through the roof. So when he swings in, everyone freaks out and high-fives him. Then the crowd chants for Gwen and him to kiss, so he's like, fuck it. They kiss in front of everyone, including Mary Jane, Peter's girlfriend, you know, the person Peter wants to marry. Then this massive sandstorm casually steals the spotlight from Peter. Marko finds a truck carrying some cash, so he tries stealing it by choosing violence and attacking these guards. Everything is going pretty well until Spider-Man shows up and tells him he's the sheriff around these streets, but Marko could care less. Spider-Man turns Marko into a midget, so he gets tossed around before saving the security guards from a fatal accident. Marko leaves empty-handed, so thanks to Peter, Marko's daughter lives to be sick another day. Later at Peter's dinner reservation, he asks Mysterio to bring out the champagne when he gives the signal with the ring in the bottom of the glass, which honestly sounds pretty dangerous because what if she swallows it? Anyway, MJ shows up feeling like she's hit rock bottom because she received shitty reviews, which led to her getting fired, and then witnessing her man cheat on her in front of the world. As she's about to tell Peter how she feels, he's like,
I'm not finished. Spider-Man,
and makes the whole conversation about himself. And here's where everything goes to shit. Peter sees Gwen and waves at her, but this man thinks he is giving him the signal, but he isn't. Gwen comes over and puts her hands all over Peter, and Peter awkwardly introduces his side chick to his main chick. She leaves, and Peter waves goodbye, accidentally giving this man the signal again. No. She gets pissed because Peter is out here acting a fool, so she leaves, and the champagne comes out. So,
Mission failed. We'll get 'em next time.
the next day, Captain Stacy talks to Peter and Aunt May to let them know that Uncle Ben's true killer wasn't this man, but instead, it was Flint Marko. So Peter jumps to conclusions and imagines Flint Marko executing Uncle Ben in cold blood. Then he takes out his anger on the captain for not doing his job. Later, Peter obsessively waits to hear something about Marko's whereabouts, but falls asleep and has nightmares instead. Then, this sticky black stuff comes out, crawls onto Peter, and takes over his entire body. Then Peter finds himself in a brand new suit, feeling like a new man. He takes a sample of the sticky stuff to Dr. Connors, and he tells Peter that this sticky stuff is a symbiote that'll be hard to remove if he keeps fucking around with it. So Peter goes home and gets a lead on Marko, ignores everything Dr. Connors told them, and puts on the suit.
I'm gonna do my own thing.
He arrives at the bank, robbed by Sandman. Then Eddie shows up, still trying to compete for the staff job, but he can't get it if he doesn't have a camera.
What the hell?
So then he pulls out his backup camera and takes pictures of the crime scene. Peter sneaks up on Marko and questions him about the old man he gunned down in cold blood. He clearly remembers like it was yesterday, so Peter attacks him because he's here for vengeance. They settle the argument with a few back and forth punches. Marko eventually falls into some water and begins to crumble like poop, so Peter takes the opportunity to drench this man in the nastiest water New York has to offer, ultimately leading to Marko's demise yet again. And it's at this moment that Peter is no longer your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. He's your neighborhood menace. Not even his landlord is safe from him, because when he demands the rent, Peter explodes and tells him to fix
This damn door!
Later, Peter visits Aunt May and tells her Flint Marco died at the hands of Spider-Man, hoping she would be excited to hear the news. But nah, quite the opposite. She doesn't believe in revenge. She believes in the Lord. Anyway, MJ calls Harry because she needs some company, so Harry's like, come through, knowing damn well what's about to happen. They end up making food and reading Harry's stupid play, and eventually, they lock eyes and kiss. So Peter and her are now even Steven. But unlike Peter, she quickly realizes her mistake and runs away from Harry, making him feel like an idiot. That must have been the straw that broke the camel's back, because he quickly remembers everything. Then his father's ghost tells him to attack Peter's heart. So when MJ comes home, Harry comes out of the shadows and threatens to hurt Peter if she doesn't do what he says, which is a wild thing to say, knowing damn well you got your ass beat the first time.
Wouldn't let that shit happen to me though.
Harry makes MJ break up with Peter to hurt his feelings, but that's not all. He meets up with Peter to tell him that he's the other guy Mary Jane is seeing. This shatters his heart, so he leaves crying, but then he turns around to go beat his ass, but Harry hides under the table, literally no other explanation. So Peter goes home defeated until he remembers he has the one thing that'll make him feel better, his black suit. So he visits Harry, knowing he must have manipulated Mary Jane in some way, and all Harry can say is strawberries. That's where Peter draws the line. It's okay if he has an entanglement, but God forbid Mary Jane has one too.
An entanglement?
Yes.
You'll end up like Harry with multiple concussions.
Look at Randy Orton slithering.
Watch out, watch out, watch out, watch out!
After beating his best friend to a pulp, he hits him with facts by telling him his father never loved him and that he was always embarrassed by him. So he throws a grenade at Peter, but as Newton's third law of motion states, for every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. All of this is to say, Peter dodges the grenade and throws it back, obliterating Harry. After casually committing another murder, Peter comes across a picture of himself robbing a bank taken by Eddie Brock. So everyone is congratulating Eddie for getting the staff job and exposing Spider-Man as a criminal. But then Peter shows up to burst his bubble by exposing his poor Photoshop skills, so he humiliates Eddie in front of everyone before getting him fired. And with that loser out of the way, the best montage in cinema history plays. This pussy magnet is walking down the street making everyone and their mothers wet. He also asserts his dominance at work, takes the staff job, and tells JJ to double the money if he wants those juicy Spider-Man pictures. Please, please Peter, leave some pussy for the rest of us. Later, Marco crawls out of the gutter, looking like a pile of shit, but at least he still has his locket. It's the only thing keeping him together. In the meantime, Peter takes Gwen out on a date to a jazz club where Mary Jane works at, and this total stalker is upset that Peter took his girl. Inside the club, Peter uses Gwen to make Mary Jane jealous in the most genius way. Right as Mary Jane is about to perform, Peter steals the spotlight and dedicates whatever the fuck this is to her. Someone get this man a life jacket. He's drowning in pussy. Not for long though, because Gwen realizes she's being played like a pawn, so she apologizes to Mary Jane and leaves. MJ feels like shit, but luckily her boss is there to tell Peter to kick rocks. Security tries escorting Peter to the exit, but unfortunately he receives the Eddie Brock treatment. Nobody's able to stop Peter except for MJ's face. Peter must have seen Scarface 100 times by the look of that slap. She looks at the monster he's become, which makes him realize he doesn't know who he is anymore. So he runs away before someone calls the cops and ends up at the top of a church reflecting on his life choices. He finally realizes the suit is no bueno, so he decides it's about time to take it off. So while he does that, Eddie steps inside the same church and sits down to ask the Lord for a small favor.
I want you to kill Peter Parker.
I don't think that's how praying works. Anyway, Peter is desperately trying to take off the suit, but it doesn't want to come off, so he has to rip it off with all of his strength. Eddie hears this shit, so he goes to see what the hell is going on, and he somehow sees Peter up there. He gets a little nut on his sweater, so he throws it away. And even after that, he sticks around like an idiot, so the symbiote sees this loser and consumes his entire body. And it's confirmed that Eddie doesn't spit, he swallows. Not only does Peter lay there butt-ass naked, but also, he somehow doesn't hear Eddie screaming in agony and turning into Venom. After washing away all his sins, Aunt May visits Peter to help him get his shit together, and she tells him he just has to forgive himself for being a dickhead and do the right thing because, just like Marco, he's not a bad person, he's just had bad luck. Speaking of Marco, Venom swings around town looking for him because he wants to form an alliance to get rid of Spider-Man. So he agrees because at this point, Marco hasn't been able to steal a single dollar without Spider-Man getting in the way. away. So later that night, Mary Jane steps into the wrong taxi cab with this loser and gets another hand to the face. She gets kidnapped, and it ends up all over the news because Venom and Sandman are wreaking havoc like a bunch of hooligans. Peter sees this on the news and quickly runs to get a suit, then have the audacity to go ask Harry for help. Harry tells him to go fuck himself, so then his butler comes to tell him that his father died of his own stupidity and that his friends love him. Anyway, while Mary Jane is running late for work, everyone turns around to see the only hope they have left. He attempts to rescue the love of his life, but then gets attacked by Venom, and Peter finds out it's Eddie. Eddie pimp slaps Peter because what goes around comes around, and after Mary Jane hits this sick trick shot, Peter attacks Venom, but he gets his ass beat and hits the floor. MJ almost dies, Sandman gets big as shit, and Peter's getting whooped as he tries to save her. So not only does he get choked, but now he's getting brutally pounded by Sandman with his fist. All hope seems to be lost for New York until Harry comes to redeem himself and saves the day by blowing Sandman's head open and smacking Venom. What a hero. They become best buddies again, forgetting about the past, and while they're kicking some ass, MJ plummets to her death, so Peter and Harry are like,
watch out, I got it. No, it's okay, I'll get it. No, wait! We'll use the power of friendship.
Peter saves MJ, and then Harry shoots Sandman with his little missiles, which takes him out. Venom sneaks up on Peter and ties him up, about to impale him, but then Harry throws his balls and tries stabbing Venom, but fails. And I could only imagine the amount of brain damage he must have from smacking into everything. Peter discovers Venom's weakness with loud sounds and gets flashbacks. Harry sees Peter about to be stabbed, so he jumps in and takes one for the team. Then Venom tosses him aside and jumps after Peter, but then gets smacked. Peter uses pipes to make a lot of sound to pull Eddie out of the symbiote. Then Peter gets a grenade and throws it, but then this loser jumps inside and gets himself turned into ashes. Sandman confronts Peter and tells him that he has a sick daughter, and on the night of his uncle's death, all he wanted was the car, but Uncle Ben, being a great man, told him to put down the gun and go home. He might have considered it if it wasn't for his partner who jump scared him, which made him accidentally shoot Uncle Ben, but it's all good because Peter knows he's not perfect either, so he forgives Sandman and lets him go even though he broke a bunch of laws. Anyway, Harry has his final moments with his friends before he dies, similar to his dad, so I guess the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Afterward, Peter learns a valuable lesson from Harry. No matter what battle we have raging inside us, we'll always have the choice to do what's right. And finally, Mary Jane wasn't fired for being late to work. Peter walks in and Mary Jane gets flashbacks. These lovebirds have a beautiful moment together and probably live happily ever after. But
I guess we'll never know.